I'm not sure if you know, but the world's oldest family business is a 1400-year-old business. And of course, it's in the country of Japan. So today's podcast is all about family businesses. And what do I mean by family business? A family business is really where ownership, management, legacy, and effectively sort of business lasts from generation to generation. And the wealth of that business and the wealth of that family is passed down from generation to generation. Now, in order to do this, you need to preserve the wealth. And in order to preserve the wealth, you need to have pretty good governance and pretty good ideologies around your family business. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of people with many different thoughts, many different thought processes, and it's not going to work out too good. So let me launch into this and let me sort of tell you a little story to launch into today's podcast on family business. When I was growing up, my mother would always tell me amazing stories of her family. Her father, my grandfather, moved well, let me start at the very beginning of my grandfather's story. So my great grandfather owned granaries in the very north of India, what is now in Pakistan, a place called Multan. And basically those granaries decided to have retail outlets. So my grandfather, who joined the family business, was tasked with the job of publicizing the fact that they now had retail for the granaries, and he had to draw these posters and put them up all around town about how the granary was selling their wheat, etc., in these stores. And he realized the power of those posters because they got a lot of clients. Everybody in the town got to know who they were, etc., etc. And he was really fascinated with the concept of paper, the concept of print. But there was not that many opportunities where he was. So he moved to Bombay and he set up literally what I would say is the first proper printing press in India. And his whole ideology was that not only did he want to print a lot of things, he also wanted to print things in a pictorial fashion, so that because there were a lot of people who were uneducated and could not necessarily read the newspaper, read a lot of books, etc., he would end up in a position where they would also buy the books because they were, the whole story was depicted in pictures, etc. So I'm really proud to say that my grandfather was the first one to actually print the Bhagavad Gita, which is a holy book of the Hindus, in pictorial fashion, and was the first person to go to Germany to buy these machines. Obviously because the best printing machines were made in Germany, and I think pretty much still are, and brought them to India and had lots of sort of, encouraged a lot of trade agreements between the Indian Printing Association and things like that in Germany. Now, long story short, my grandfather obviously built a heck of a lot of wealth, and my mother had 14 brothers and sisters, 10 of whom survived to be adults. And also there was partition. So in 1947, when India had separation and partition and Pakistan was created, all of his family members needed to move across the border. And he basically sponsored all his cousins, uncles, the extended family to move into the printing business. So lo and behold, where you had my grandfather and my grandmother, you now had a family of 40 people effectively working in this family business, which was printing and publishing. Now, as things happened, my grandfather was a dreamer and he believed in the perfect family, the perfect business, utopia. My mother always used to say to me, was a very positive thinker, very outward looking. So whilst he was busy growing the business, unfortunately, a lot of her uncles, a lot of her older brothers were basically either spending all the money or causing conflict in the business, fighting over things, etc. So when he would come back from his global trips of, promoting this book that I talked about, the Bhagavad Gita and pictures, etc., it was a big mess. There was no real governance. There wasn't like a board of directors managing it. Everybody was, putting their views forth. Everybody was taking money from the business, etc. So, unfortunately, over a period of time, the next generation, whilst they did amass a great number of wealth, it was sort of fractured. And, really a lot of the businesses went their own ways. Now I have cousins in different parts of the world owning printing and publishing businesses, but they're not fully tied into our family business. And they've also ended up with a lot of properties that they ended up renting out because, some of the people in the family weren't fully trained to take over these businesses and basically lost the printing and publishing kind of a business. So it was such a great dream, such a great story, but really, did it last from generation to generation? I'm not sure. And today I want to talk about the reasons for this. I mean, if you look at UAE and Dubai, where I am, 90% of the GDP runs on family business enterprises. We have massive family businesses here. I've talked about it in my blogs. We've talked about the Al Futtaim group and the separation between Majid Al Futtaim and the Al Futtaim group that the government intervened on because it's such a major contributor to our economy. The government can absolutely not turn a blind eye to a massive family like this when there is a conflict because of succession planning or the lack thereof. So you have the Al Ghurairs, the Al Tayers, you have the Shaloubs who set up a jewelry store in 1950s and never looked back because they became distributors of all these mega French brands, Italian brands, and known in the fashion industry, etc. So um, family business is a touchy topic. The reason why family business is a thing now is because it's not good enough to be able to call your brother and ask for 200,000 dirhams to buy a car. It's not good enough to call your mother to be able to go to the Van Cleef store and buy some jewelry and taking all of this money from the family business and depleting the family wealth, plus having no boundaries or no governance in terms of the separation between family wealth and or family money, so to speak, and the money of the family business. So today I wanted to really talk about a lot of things that have changed and happened that impacts family businesses. There are really three different aspects that I wanted to consider. Number one is the fact that the Dubai Chamber of Commerce has a whole cell and a whole team working towards helping family businesses move into what I would call a more corporatized way of being and a way of working. They have devised a sort of well, there is a law. There is, obviously the federal law that supports this. We have the UAE Federal Law 37 of 2022, which provides a very clear legal framework. It highlights the role of the government in empowering family businesses. It allows family businesses to officially register as family businesses. And it seeks to also give a lot of incentives to family businesses who decide to effectively sign up as family businesses. It also encourages drafting of like family constitutions and charters. Now, why is this important? Because then everybody in the family, say I'm the head of the family, I can decide and I can bring everybody who's working in the family into the fold. I can ensure, for example, I've had families that say to me, we don't want our son-in-laws or daughter-in-laws in our family business. So the charter can actually describe how you intend to run your family business, who you want involved in your family business, who you don't want involved in your family business, all of that. So that's possible too. So as I said, we have the Dubai Chamber of Commerce that under federal law has a whole cell that supports family business. We have the DIFC, which is the Dubai International Financial Center, that has amazing rules around registration of family businesses, registration of foundations, also trusts, but foundations I've seen have been more of a fashion lately because of their corporate personality and the ability of foundations to own property, the ability of foundations to own shares, ability of foundations to have bank accounts more easily, etc. So that's that. And then there's the other bit, which is the UAE Companies Law, which also allows you to have holding companies, which, in its amendment many years ago decided that yes, sole establishments and things like that are not sustainable for big families, and the law actually allows you to have holding companies in different structures. So I can't say that any family business today has an excuse to not look at some of these options, consider these options, and consider what do they need for the longevity of their family business. So as I said, family businesses are very closely tied to the UAE's cultural heritage. They emphasize a lot of trust, a lot of loyalty, legacy. They represent about 90% of the workforce in the UAE ends up working for family businesses. Many of these were founded in the 1950s and 1960s. Now, I want to talk about an additional complexity in family businesses, and that is cross-border businesses. So whilst, yes, you can have holding companies in Dubai, you can have a foundation in the DIFC for international, for however you want to structure it. Sometimes complexities in family businesses arise when you have more than one jurisdiction. Like you'll hear from David, Freight Systems is in more than 15, 16 countries and growing. So you have to have sort of a different plan or a legacy, that is structured across these geographies, and each geography has its challenges. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of Asian businesses tend to have holding companies or foundations set out or trusts set out of Singapore. When you have kids or when you have aspects in your family that relate to the US, you need to be more strategic in how you plan. And many of our American clients or clients that have American members of their family may choose to have things like Caribbean trusts or much more US friendly, US tax compliant structures in place. Tax is quite an important part. Obviously, 9% corporate tax is also coming into the UAE. So I warn clients about thinking about corporatizing everything, because every corporate vehicle that you have and every corporate aspect that you have will probably end up having to file tax returns, whether or not you pay tax or not, depending on the threshold, of your income and of your revenue. But it's important to note that not everything can necessarily be corporatized. So my general view is that you need a sort of like a structure around family businesses. A lot of it flows obviously from the founder or the leader. If the founder or the leader is able to let go of power, is able to let go of control, bring other members in, then you could do either a family protocol or a charter if you're looking at a foundation, and set out the rules of working. If you're not doing that, a lot of our clients choose to have holding companies with board of directors in those holding companies. So the board runs that holding company, and therefore the sort of the mood of the board or the directive of the board flows down to all of the different companies. In some cases, I've had families that have different members of the family, like in my grandfather's case, for example, where people could have taken over sort of different jurisdictions. So somebody could have been in India, somebody could have been in Germany, somebody could have been, in the US, somebody could have been in Mauritius, Singapore, etc., wherever he was setting up, printing presses and looking at his business. And therefore, they might have a majority share in that business, but in the scheme of things, in the whole family, all of the income or all of the common expenses and common income is pooled in, which is then split up under the family charter, etc. So you could make this as complicated or as easy as you want. But the important lesson is it has to be driven by the end result that you want. Do you want to please everybody in your family, or do you want the legacy of your family business to continue? Do you want to make sure that the people who work the hardest in your business are the most rewarded? And do you want to make sure you open up opportunities, for new family members to come into the business on a fair, even playing field? Because you might end up in a situation, I've had this as well, where we had one family where siblings are 16 years apart. So obviously, the older brother has a leg in, is very close to the dad, very close into the family business. And the younger brother, who comes in 16 years later, is given sort of only 25% and is sort of treated a little bit step brotherly, or, in kind of that, if there's a term like that, but is not given the full reins, is not given full transparency. There's a lack of communication, etc. And there's a lot of frustration building where the younger brother sort of may want to consider going his own way, but because the family business is so profitable, so integrated, and that is what they grew up with, it's very difficult to split the family business if there is this kind of dispute. So it's better to split, or better to divide things up fairly, or to allocate responsibility where responsibility can be allocated. And the last thing I would say is that fitting everybody into a CEO or a CFO or a very senior management box in a family business doesn't always work. I would say 50% of the time family businesses fail because not just the governance, it's because their management style is too archaic or isn't moving with the times. So the same management style that my grandfather followed, okay, his wasn't even a management style because he was sort of, as I said, utopian in his viewpoint, and he believed everybody should pull their weight and be fair and do the right thing, which in life we know doesn't always happen. What you do need to do is you need to ensure and empower the right people in the right positions. So, as I've said before, if I'm a shoemaker, I can't turn up and be a great lawyer. If I'm a great lawyer, I may not be a great manager. If I'm a great manager, I may not be the best HR person. So, really, making the roles right for the family members and employing professionals to do and many of these roles if you are not able to do them as family, empowering other people, giving them the role, supervising them, monitoring them, of course, being their boss, being on the board, etc. But it's really easy if you can decide what your priorities are. You can decide which jurisdictions you want to cover and protect yourself in. You can decide how you want communication channels to work. Then you might be setting yourself up for success in planning your family business, and your legacy would last forever and ever. In today's podcast, I've invited a good friend of mine who happens to be in his 70s. His name is David Phillips. He is an Anglo-Indian Goan who moved to Dubai in the 1980s when barely anybody was here, and then proceeded to set up what is now a very well-known and very well-regarded logistics and freight company called Freight Systems. It's interesting because not only is David a very amiable and likable character, he managed to create a family business with a lot of planning, with a lot of thought process, and without any conflict. His son joined the business as an adult. His daughter works in the business as well. And it's really interesting to see their journey and his thought process, because that's what I think like a good founder does. He empowers the next generation of people and moves the company and the whole business thought process ahead. So we'll talk to David in a bit. He is super well regarded in UAE circles. Everybody in the logistics and freight business knows him, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And I'll keep the surprise for later, but there are some really great lessons to be learned from his journey. Hi, David. Thank you so much for participating in my little venture here.
Pleasure.
I wanted to ask you, because today's topic has all been about family businesses, the life cycle of family businesses, what works, what doesn't work, the laws in Dubai that support it, because there are now a lot of laws in Dubai that support family businesses like you to grow and to be international and to make Dubai even more famous. So tell me a little bit about your sort of your founding journey. I know you got here in the 1980s. Talk me through what happened. What was Dubai like?
Oh, so I came here on the 24th of May, 1981.
Oh, wow.
So that's a long time ago. And came here, got a job, came here with the plan to be here for 2 years. The objective was earn 200,000 rupees and go back home. Because my boss at that time said, David, I'll hold your job for 2 years. Are you going to come back? I said, Mr. Dastur, I just need 200,000 rupees that I'm back home. And then it never happened, right? Like all the stories you hear. Call me a week before the 2 years and says, David, are you coming back? And I said, yeah, Mr. Dastur, this is what's happening. And that he said, okay, bye-bye. And then, but I was working for a company out here, global shipping for 8 years till 88. And that's 7 years till when I started Freight Systems. The real journey started then.
Okay.
When, as a 35-year-old.
And what prompted you to, I mean, as a 35-year-old, starting a new business in old days of Dubai is pretty daunting, right? Because most of the family businesses were owned by a lot of the locals and not so many of the Indians here.
Yeah, it was, in some ways, it was actually a blessing in disguise because I never planned. But when I think back, maybe I always wanted to be doing something on my own or managing stuff on my own, but it never really struck me. Maybe I come a very simple Goan family, right? So when I told my parents I'm going to start a business, are you crazy? You have a nice job, go here. So what pushed me into it is because I wanted to do something more, and it didn't go very well with the people I was working with. And I said, listen, my best option would be maybe I should resign and then they'll give me what I want. So when I resigned, they said, great idea. You can go now. So my strategy backfired and I found myself with no job.
Right.
But that's when relationships really kick in. And one of our, big partners said, David, you're going to competition. I said, no, I'm not. I don't have a job. This was Castrol. We were the agents for Castrol Marine Lubricants. And we were doing a lot of fun things at that time. And he says, can't stop what we're doing, David. You got to carry it on. I said, Phil, I can't. You have an agency. You can't. He said, I've got nothing going.
Right.
And so relationships really set me up and started me to think that maybe I should do something, give it a shot. I was 35 years old. I had 2 kids. I said, I give it a few years. If it doesn't work, I'm young enough to make the U-turn and go back. And
To Mr. Dastur?
no, someone in Dubai. I did decide not to leave Dubai. The family was settled in, and I put food on the table, and so
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 various plans set up. The worst case scenario was driving a cab, but that's who I am. I always plan things accordingly. But it worked out okay. And from 1988 onwards, we started small, and then uh, realized that Dubai was a very strategically placed economy from the logistics perspective. And it was surrounded by very inefficient neighbors.
Right.
So that provided a lot of opportunity for us to do things, leveraging Dubai as a logistics hub
Mm-hmm.
with the inefficient neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So then we said, what do we do? Can we just stay in Dubai? And we said, no, why don't we just go and do something in these inefficient economies and leverage Dubai even more? So
Right.
that's when we started opening up India and,
And how challenging was that? I mean, you were at that time on your own because you're young.
yeah, on my own, I had no money. I had 2 partners, my ex-boss from my earlier company, very efficiently went bankrupt in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So he came back, and then I said, okay, listen, you're not doing anything, Mr. Come and join me. So we got together, and Mr. Bambot, who you know,
Yes.
he's the guy who put money on the business.
Oh, wow.
He actually funded us.
Right.
Without him, we would be nowhere.
Right.
So the 3 of us got together, and we started the business. Of course, I was running the business, and that's how we started out here. And in hindsight, Jayashree, when in those days it was tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you go forward 20 years later and you look at it and you say it was much easier to start a business then than it is today.
The competition is
The
crazy now.
competition today is crazy,
Yeah.
but we never knew what it's going to be, so it was always tough.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a lot of mistakes, but I think we did some things better than we did things wrong. So
Mhm.
and we survived. So I tell you, our story today is people talk to us because we survived, but there are many people who worked harder than me that didn't make it.
Right.
So there's a lot of luck also involved.
Timing, luck. And I guess your trajectory was also like Dubai ports and Jebel Ali ports growing, that whole phenomenal growth of the logistics and infrastructure,
So we were lucky we got into certain things that, we created a niche name for ourselves, and we had a platform on which to grow. And we were one of the lucky few that survived. And then,
So tell me about the transition. Do you still have I know Mr. Bambot is still around, of course, but do you have the partners in your business? And tell me a little bit about how your family came into the business.
so I had 2 partners, right? Mr. Minwala and Mr. Bambot. Mr. Minwala passed away. But the plan, Minwala was 20 years older than me. Bambot is 15 years older than me. They always wanted an exit. So we had planned that at the age of 70, they said, we want an exit.
Right.
So we planned the exit. We got people to come in and value the business. And I said, I will stay away from it.
Hmm.
Whatever the values, if I like it, because I wanted to buy them out. The others, my both sons, the surgeon in the US. So,
Right.
and meanwhile, I had no kids.
Right.
So I had 2 kids, but I didn't know whether they were going to come in the business. But I was the youngest of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a passion for the business. So I was doing the business. So we came up with an agreement, and I bought both of them out. Yeah.
Oh.
So then, that happened quite a few years ago. But Mickey still has an office in our. He still,
Of course.
yeah. We didn't let him go. He's an icon. He's an icon. So then eventually, in the 90s, we bought both of them out, and early 2000s.
And did you have to raise money for that, or you had private money that you were able to use to do that?
Well, what we did is we said, one thing is we don't like to borrow money. Whatever we do, we try to do with our own money.
Right.
So I said, whatever our agreement is, I'm quite happy to pay you, but let's not affect the cash flow. And you guys are not going anywhere. So we did it over a 4-5 year term.
Right.
So then it was.
You had ratcheted payment.
Yeah,
and you were
all regularly done, and so it didn't.
You're quite lucky though, because these days, like partnerships, whenever I see them happen, it's like a honeymoon for quite a bit of a period. But then the commercial reality of life sort of leaves a lot of these partnerships, and they start like pursuing, the greed of everything around us, which is
So
sad to see.
yeah, I've been tremendously fortunate with my two partners, two Parsis.
Yes.
You know, never had a problem with them.
Right.
Not a single day did we have, you know,
Any
an
disagree.
issue and
Yeah,
arguments about business. But
of course.
you know, that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
But very fortunate in the partners I had. Smooth from day one, still continues with Mickey.
Yeah.
Mike, unfortunately, is no more. But we're very, very fortunate. Yeah.
And then what was the transition to bringing Jonathan into the business, and
So
how did that work?
yeah. So that just what happened with John. I never brought him into the business. So John was very headstrong from day one. He said, "Dad, I don't want any help from you. Don't help me in getting into college. Don't help me getting a job after I finish. Let me do things on my own." So he went and he was a trader in Chicago for 6 years after he graduated. And then one day he said, "Dad, maybe I want to, give it a shot
Right.
because I'm done this for 6 years. I make a lot of money, but I'm no part of management in planning the future of this organization, and I never will be."
Right.
Okay. I said, "John, you got to think really hard about this because you're in the financial district of the US,
Yeah.
which is big, big money.
Yeah.
We do $100 container profit and 10 cents per kilo on air freight and things like that." He said, "But at least I'll have a chance to see how I can grow the business and be part of that growth." So that's how he actually. I had no expectations at all.
Yeah.
Zero expectations.
Yeah.
I said, "I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
I only insist that whatever you do, be happy in what you do. And you do not have to come into this business. I'm not a typical Asian parent.
Of course.
Like, you do what makes you happy."
Especially after giving them great education, opportunities, being global, all of that.
And then he came in and, he liked it. And he had a deal with his own company that, again, like me, 2 years, they said, "Listen, John, if you don't like what you're doing with your dad, you can come back."
Right.
And, it's been 13 years now that he's
But given you were already so established when he joined, how did how did he come in vis-a-vis the other senior employees? Did they feel, oh, John's come into the business? Is there going to be an issue? Or were you able to compartmentalize?
Yeah, so, Jayashree, a lot of the noise around freight systems was, you know, uh, John's in the US. David doesn't have a successor. So every month I'd get someone wanting to buy me out. And there were rumors that, okay, David's going to sell. David's going to sell. And I never reacted to any of the rumors because I've seen it so often. I said, best is never react. Because when you react, then there's something in it.
Right.
So I never reacted. So when John came in, all those rumors just died. They said, oh boy, the next generation is in. But the big change in us came when John did join because it changed our psyche from, I come back to the question you asked, from short-term planning to very long-term planning.
Right.
Because now I can think the next 40 years or the next 30 years because the next generation is committed to the business. So it's not about me, it's about the next generation. And it's a funny thing when your own comes in and he's a smart young kid that's willing to learn, senior management accepts it. I don't think they really had a choice, right? I mean,
Right.
I didn't give anybody a choice. I
Yes,
said,
of course.
this is the next generation. This is the succession plan I have.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it was pretty smooth. It was pretty smooth. But John is a different animal. I'm a different animal.
Did his coming into the business, I know you're quite known for like a lot of the innovation you brought into the logistics industry. Tell me about that. Was that your journey, his journey, a joint journey?
When I started the business, there was a lot of opportunity to bring innovation. I think by the time John came in, innovation was there. And ours is a very staid kind of a business, one of the oldest professions in the world. You move cargo from point A to point B, and it's the same thing. The only thing that really changed was automation and technology.
Right.
So that is where the younger generation, with John and his
Team.
and those guys bring that flavor to the business that we do. It's the same kind of business, but much smarter, done much smarter and much cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of like shareholder agreements, cousins, siblings, your daughter, anyone else in the family coming into the business, or how have you sort of structured it so that the governance principles will outlast?
We're going through that right now.
Okay.
Okay, so the only two family members in the business is John and Amanda, my
Right.
two kids.
Right.
And I decided very early that I'm not going to wait. My grandfather didn't have a will, and I know what my mom went through when my granddad died
Right.
to probate the will and with the property and all that. No, not, it was not a lot of money, but it was just a problem to get things
Process.
done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, I'm not going to let the next generation go through that hassle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give everything away while I live.
Mm-hmm.
So I split everything down the middle, 50-50.
Right.
Okay? 50-50. And then each one have got trusts made.
Mm-hmm.
We have a master trust. I will try to do as much as I can to avoid conflict of the future.
Right.
Whether there's going to be conflict or not, I don't know. There may be. But the extent of conflict will be limited because of what I've done in
You split
structuring it now.
Right. Right. And where are these trusts, if I can ask you?
They're in Singapore.
Right.
They're
And why did you choose Singapore? I mean, you must have obviously delved into this.
John got a whole bunch of these experts to,
Right.
but our whole company is now headquartered in DIFC.
Okay.
Global, this is DIFC. We moved the whole thing to DIFC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But our trusts are out in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say, like, if there was somebody bringing their family into the business? I mean, I think you've been lucky, like you said, you had good partners, you had, good kids who cooperated, probably because also you were fair to them. What would you say is a general lesson you see or issues you see in other family businesses that you think like you would have done differently, if you were in their position? So, I mean, obviously there are big examples like the Al Futtaim group, Majid Al Futtaim, what's going on now with the government intervening. Because if you look at it, like 90% of Dubai's workforce actually works for family businesses.
Yeah.
If you think about the huge conglomerates that we have here that are running as family businesses. But what do you think your lesson is from all of this? What works, what doesn't work in a family business? How have you avoided also the conflicts, that these kind of decision making bring?
So, I think the onus of making the next generation successful lies with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget that. Okay. Because in my kind of a scenario where I started the business, it is so personal to me. And I don't like anyone coming next to it.
No interference.
Right? Yeah. But the moment you realize that that's the wrong thing to do, because at the end of the day, what did we do this? What are we doing today? For what? It's for our kids, for the next generation. When you realize that that's what I'm doing, then believe in them. It's for them. If they're willing to come into the business, you're a fortunate parent.
Mm-hmm.
Now do your part. And I learned this when I went to a family business conference in Hyderabad with ISB.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Godrej out there, there were the Mittals out there were a whole bunch of the big families out there. And the concept was talk about succession. What are the challenges? What are the hurdles to succession?
Mm-hmm.
And all the hurdles were the first generation, were people like me. We were the hurdles.
It's ironic.
No,
So it's the same thing in the Majid Al Futtaim case. Like,
it's a fact.
yeah.
And one kid said that, my father doesn't talk to me about business. And everything came down to communication. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I don't resonate with any of this.
Right.
Because I was so eager to transfer knowledge to John. I said that how can I just give it over to him and play golf and drink wine? Right? And I spoke to Professor Radhakrishnan. I said, Radha, I don't know, am I missing something? Am I missing something?
The more you have, the bigger problems you
I said, am I missing something? Because I'm not having any of these problems, right? Because I have a super communication, I'm playing golf. Then 3 o'clock in the morning, I realized that golf was the answer. Because I've been playing with golf with John from the time he's 10 years old.
I tell everybody in my office that golf is always the answer. Do they believe me?
Because you have to communicate. Try and keep a 10-year-old quiet on the golf course.
Yeah.
So John knows more about me than anybody in the world.
Right.
So there was no communication gap. The communication gap was the barrier between the two generations. So he says, David, stand up and tell your story. I stood up and told my story.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But it's true.
Yes.
That there was, but the thing, Jayashree, is not about, it's about us believing that our kids or the next generation are capable. If we keep saying, no, I don't think you're doing that right, they'll start thinking, "Oh, maybe I'm getting it wrong." But if you say, fantastic, too good, just go with it. Just go with it. You make a few mistakes, you learn from it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that gives them the confidence. But if we don't do that, they're never going to get that confidence. So it, again, comes back to us and what we do.
But you must have had some conflicts along the way, right? I mean, you
Even today,
right,
even today, we'll have conflicts, but we'll have healthy conflicts that we will discuss.
right.
And the one agreement that I had with John is that if we have a professional conflict, I will back down. I'll take your role. You're the next generation.
Right. So do you operate as a board of directors or do you just have
We have a management team.
right,
We have
right.
a management team.
And then the management team is you and John and a few other key players.
We have about 8 or 10 key players, and we really, all of them are empowered to, and they do talk to us and say, David, I don't agree. John, I don't agree. This is what we think we should do. And we have a very healthy kind of, but not many conflicts with John. So,
And
because-
Amanda, what's her role?
So John is a businessman.
Right.
Where's the money? How do I make money?
Right.
Amanda's absolutely the opposite. HR, empathy, quality, training, all the stuff she loves, people.
Right.
Okay, that's so she looks after all of that other stuff.
Mhm.
The system, she knows it very well, and she'll train people and all that stuff. So two of them are completely on two different sides of important sides. But Amanda says, yeah, I know my brother's the CEO.
Yeah.
Okay, he does the business side,
Yeah.
and I will support him in all these functions where I know he's not very good at.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great. I mean, to be able to also
What's your plan?
identify
Yeah.
the strengths in the succession plan or in the next generation, right? Because lots of people try to box. Like, for example, if John hadn't been, I've seen this a lot, where John may not be CEO material. Maybe Amanda would have been CEO material, but because of the gender roles
Yeah.
and the gender bias and the way businesses work, you just tend to slot that child into that role, and maybe that's not something they can perform.
But then again, Yasha, I come back and I have open conversations with them, and I say that, are you happy in what you're doing? Because remember, all of this is, if you're not happy, life is not worth it. You have one life.
Right.
Just be happy as you. Life has its problems anyway. Within that, how can we be happy? Try and be happy. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is not having any expectations. The moment you have
But
expectations,
does that come with age or does that come with like...
it came when John was graduating from middle school to high school, and we had a counselor call us in and talk to us. And the first question that lady asked is, are you happy with your kid? And nobody put their hand up. So I said, even I'm not going to put my hand up. Why should I put my hand up? 30 parents out there, American school.
Right.
And she said, let me tell you why none of you all are putting your hands up. Because we have one kid and we compare this kid with 5 of our neighbors' kids.
Mhm.
That one's good at chemistry, that was at physics, this is great at
And we want our kids to be all of
this
that.
one's good at
Yeah.
literature, and that's at golf. And my kid is not as good as any. How can you compare one kid with 5 kids? It's unfair. So what do? We create a parameter, and we want our kid to fit into that parameter.
Mhm.
And say that this is the expectations I have from you. And no kid will ever fulfill that.
Yeah. How about parents looking in the mirror as well?
So,
Yeah.
so she said, why don't you flip it over?
Hmm.
Why don't you take your kid and say, this is the ideal kid, and draw the parameter around your kid? That's the ideal kid. It's not going to change. It's your kid.
Mhm.
There's no doubt you love him or her to death.
Mhm.
So, expectations. That's what I did. And I said, this is great. Whatever he is, I'm super happy. Love him to death. His coordination on the basketball is terrible. Better on golf. Okay.
For context, John is 6'8", next in height, 6'7" in height. So he's a very tall boy.
He's a tall boy. Yeah. So that lesson I learned early, expectations.
Okay.
Don't create, if you have expectations, you will get disappointed. And we are human beings, we all have expectations. How do we manage that?
Mhm. And you said now that John and Amanda are in the business, you literally have a next 40-year plan. What is this plan? Where is Freight Systems going to go?
So, we, on one of the Emirates flights, I saw a Warren Buffett documentary, right? And what do we do? What do we do all this for? Okay, someone said, David, you're a big guy. I says, and I know you're not talking about my size when they say that, right? But the documentary says that every dollar that you don't need is useless to you. So let's, for example, say I need $100 or I need $100 million. But every dollar beyond that 100 million or $100 is of no value to me. I can't use it anywhere because I have no use for it. But somebody who needs $10 and only has $5, that dollar is of immense value. So what do we do all this for? A lot of it is, how much money is in my bank and, how successful I'm looked at successes, how much money I have, right?
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Mhm.
When you said, okay, enough is enough. I have enough. We are not a flamboyant family. We are a simple family. But that's what we need. We live a comfortable life. Then what? So the whole philosophy of where we want to go stems from here.
Right.
Part of it is ambition.
Mhm.
Part of it is how do you want your company to be viewed? We want to be market leaders in certain things and in certain areas. By all means, go and do that.
Mhm.
But money is always important. What you do with the outcome of that, nobody needs to know. Because the outcome is always money.
Sure.
There's no other
Yeah.
objective. Outcome is money. But what you do with that money is something that you know what you need to do.
Right.
And if you want to put it in the bank and just say, I've got $1 billion or 100 million, that makes you happy, so be it. Makes you happy. But nobody needs to know what you do with it. Right. But beyond a certain point, that
It's
extra dollar
immaterial.
means it's immaterial.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody go down in the grave with all their money put with them
True.
and the grave covered. No, it's in the bank
Yeah.
or somewhere else. So it's of no value.
Right.
So that kind of a perception is what I'm getting to the kids.
Okay.
Do what makes you happy. Make sure your company is outstandingly good, whatever you do,
Mhm.
but don't do it for reasons other than what you really want it for.
Right.
Money is important, but make sure the money
You're
gets
enjoying the journey and the
to the people who really help you make the money.
right. No, that's very visionary. I mean, I'm going to think about common sense. When I grow my legal business, I'm going to think like,
The problem, common sense is not so common. That's the problem.
but I think you take quite a simplistic and fair view of life. Like you said, if you control your expectations and you don't try to control the outcome,
Yeah.
then everything sort of aligns. The more you chase it, the less you find it. No, thank you very much. This has been very insightful. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and everything you've shared.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.